I turned 1, I have never seen my dad walk. Only in the old photo albums is he standing tall on his 2 legs, not dependent on a wheelchair. In most of those photos, I can see his overdraped face while dancing, hiking, and playing soccer, just like how smile comes so naturally when I am playing sports. When he was returning home from a soccer game, he was struck by a racing car. With wounds and fractures all over his body, the doctor warned that he may not regain consciousness. Luckily, he woke up, but the accident would give him paraplegia, an inability to move his lower body for the rest of his life. When he woke up from the anesthesia, nobody told him that he would never be able to walk again. At that very moment, he said that he could not imagine himself paraplegic. My dad uses a wheelchair. Now he can climb short staircases and bumps with help, but long distances are still hard work for him. According to the WHO, approximately 16% of the global population has a physical disability. This refers to conditions that hinders one's physical function and mobility, impacting their ability to perform daily activities. And 10% of them, or 650 million people, require a wheelchair, just like my dad. But despite the numbers, it is hard to say that individuals with disabilities are being provided with adequate support to thrive just like any other member of our society. For instance, it is 15 times more difficult for disabled individuals to find accessible transportation than others. But this is just the tip of an iceberg, as those with disabilities are facing numerous obstacles every day. The most significant issue from my experience seems to be related to facilities. It is a well-known fact that there aren't enough facilities in the society. Tall buildings lack elevators, but instead have long staircases that are inaccessible to wheelchair users. While the Disability Act mandated that the buildings should provide lifts and elevators for wheelchair users, actual enforcement is not happening. New buildings are a bit compliant with this act, but it is not enough. Whenever my dad sees a wheelchair, and the most significant issue is the social stereotypes. This is shown in 2 forms: indifference and excessive undue attention. The former of those, indifference, is shown through the lack of health facilities and the prioritization of individuals' well-being over the rights of individuals with disabilities. As tall buildings lack elevators, many places do not follow the disabled parking space size standards. Disabled parking spaces are mandated by the government to be provided with wider spaces so that the wheelchair can easily exit and enter after they've parked the car. But oftentimes I see these blue color spots the same sizes as the regular parking spaces, which blocks the wheelchair users from easily passing by. But do I mean that there aren't any helpful facilities? Of course not. Numerous installments have the potential to greatly assist those with disabilities. However, individuals' action from personal convenience, either knowingly or unknowingly, prevent these facilities from being used conveniently. An example of this is the parking facilities. While I see parking spaces for the disabled, I also see cars without the required plan cards parked in those spots. Over 1,800 vehicles have been caught parking illegally more than 6 times. Also, the ramps in the sidewalks called curb cuts are another example. My dad once told me, before the accident, I couldn't understand why people in wheelchairs use the road instead of the sidewalk. But now he understands why. When cars are blocking those curb cuts, there is no way for the wheelchair to use the sidewalk. According to research done regarding curb cuts, only 2.6% of the intersection met the criteria for accessibility. While indifference seems like a significant issue, the other side of the spectrum isn't any better. Excessive or undue attention is shown in the form of unconscious glances and words that unknowingly hurt them. When you see a person in a wheelchair, don't you glance over your shoulder without even noticing it? Or does the glance last longer that it becomes an unconscious stare? I do the same. It is completely normal to feel curious enough to look when you encounter someone different. But have you been on the other side of staring? When going out with my dad, I feel that my family is subjected to those unconscious glances. And the feeling is subtle, but everyone can feel it, especially my dad. What's more, the word disability is used as a derogatory term in our society. People tend to not notice that this may hurt someone's feelings. When going out with my dad, I oftentimes feel the cold indifference and overwhelming interest. But we view each other as human beings. We love each other, just not as an able-bodied teenager to a disabled man, but just as a daughter and a father. People may think, why should I care whether people with disabilities have access to better accommodations? What incentive is there for me trying to make a better world for them? And the answer to this question is unclear. Able-bodied people have no real moral obligations, nor do they receive any benefits from this process. But I do not believe that respect and care should come from any obligatory or material purposes. They deserve to be treated as people, just like anybody else, just like I love my dad unconditionally. When we are with each other, we are not the disabled or the non-disabled. We are father and daughter. And the reason to act is as simple as that, simply because they deserve to be treated as people. When my dad couldn't find a curb cut, his fatherly love makes sure that I am on the sidewalk while he uses the road. He always prioritizes his love for me, my safety, my happiness, my well-being, because he cares. And this feeling is mutual. The first time we went to see a show together, I couldn't sit next to my dad. He had to take the reserved spots in the front or the back of the theater. But in the front of the theater, you have to tilt your head all the way back to see the stage. And in the back, it is hard for you to see the stage properly. But I loved my dad so much that I couldn't leave him alone. My mom and I helped him up the stairs one by one. It took a long, hard effort, but we could watch the show together. While we were happy, it still struck me that those with disabilities who cannot receive any assistance will never be able to watch the show like anybody else. It's not that we didn't have any ups and downs before being able to treat each other as simply father and daughter. When I was 1, I was left in my grandmother's house. At that time, I didn't know anything about my dad's condition. But I grew to know that my dad couldn't piggyback me like the other dads. He couldn't take me to the water park or go hiking with me or play my favorite sports with me. He missed all my firsts. Waving his hand in the front gate on the first day of elementary school, being in the audience for my first musical, and congratulating me with flowers on my first day of graduation. These were all things he had to miss out on. It's not that I didn't know that he tried. He placed me on his lap instead of his back, bought me water guns instead of bringing me to the water park, and he became my one and only coach instead of an opponent. But he missed all my firsts. And that didn't leave me despite his efforts. As I grew, I began to care more and more about what people thought about my dad's wheelchair. I regret to say that I was embarrassed. But anywhere I went, my dad was the only person in a wheelchair, and that made me anxious. Yet the moments have already passed, and I appreciate that my dad tried his best to make memories with me, to become more than a person with a disability, but a father. I acknowledge his disability. When I see him, I don't see his wheelchair. I see a father still desperate to be there for me, to show his love for me. And love, or even a modicum of care, always comes first. Not just for my dad and I, but for anyone. To make an inclusive society, advocating for accessibility of public spaces, using inclusive language, and challenging stereotypes. These are crucial. Speak up to the public to install facilities such as curb cuts, elevators, and accessible sidewalks, avoiding interfering these facilities. And most importantly, treat wheelchair users as equals, not as people who need pity. Everyone is essentially a human and a rightful part of our society. A truly inclusive world starts with everyday actions that make spaces more accessible and attitudes more inclusive. Our government can get inspirations from more developed countries such as Japan, Sweden, and the United States. First of all, Japan, with its train and subway stations, have elevators, low floors, ramps, and wheelchair-accessible jumbo taxis. Also, Sweden's metro have wide doors, ramps, and designated space for wheelchair users. Lastly, the United States have buses with ramps and transit agencies provided by the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. It is crucial that you acknowledge that your small actions matter. Our world is for everyone because no matter who you are, you have the right to be treated equally. Facilities we deem as helpful are often completely ineffective or useless, not doing anything for the equal rights of people with disabilities. My dad has endured the greatest tragedy in his life, yet he remains one of the most happiest people I know. As his daughter, I know that the big and small tweaks we make to facilities as a world, a nation, an individual will be the hope and encouragement for people with disabilities to live their daily lives with much more courage and independence. Thank you.